Good morning and welcome back to the Brick by Brick podcast with Ronald Paulius, where we look at the principles woven throughout our universe that anyone, including you, can take advantage of to build a life worth living brick by brick. I got my guest here, Ella Ray. She's been on the podcast before, about a year ago. A lot of time has gone on since then. Ella Ray, how are you doing? Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me back. It's awesome to be here. I'm doing great. And yourself? How's everything going with you?
Things are well. A lot of things have transpired since our last, our last meeting,
Yeah.
our last interview for the both of us. So
Yes, I see you out here doing big things, so I'm excited.
I want to be like you when I grow up. Well, let's jump into this. I wanna talk some. So just a recap. So let's just recap your backstory just a little bit, what you did before you became a TC, and then we'll kind of just go from there.
Yeah, so I was an executive assistant to C-level executives in the financial sector in New York City for about 20 years. And after that, I left corporate America and I started running a stucco and masonry company based out of New Jersey, where we were doing stucco applications and things like pavers and brick fronts and all of that good stuff. And that actually brought me and kind of introduced me to real estate because I was seeing a lot of these houses that looked like crap right before we started working on them, and then all of a sudden there were these beautiful homes where it was just like I couldn't believe that was the same house, but I didn't know that you could buy these, without having to get a conventional loan. So that was my
Yeah,
first introduction to real estate.
nice, nice. Isn't that crazy? I also thought you could only buy these using a conventional loan.
I know, I think a lot of people think that way.
So you're a TC now. Can you just speak briefly on what's a TC? What do you do? What does that look like?
Well, transaction coordinator is someone who gets a real estate deal to the closing table, right? So we're the ones crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. But I will say that creative transaction coordinators work a lot differently than conventional ones, is what I'm finding, because we're not just pushing the papers right from one person to the next. We're also troubleshooting and problem solving along the way, because these deals are so nuanced and so different that you have to have a deeper understanding of these transactions in order to really facilitate them. So all day I sit here with my dogs and I work on people's deals to get them closed. Looks like a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot
Wow.
of, going over documents. And but I've been doing this for about 4 years now. I love it. Every deal is different, and it's fun for me.
Awesome. Awesome. So you've been doing this for years. Would you go back to what you were doing before?
Which part, the stucco or the admin and executive assistant stuff?
Any one of them? Would you go back to any one of them?
Uh, Maybe the stucco and masonry, or some
Okay.
kind of construction. I did really like that. Um, But I wouldn't go back to being an executive assistant. Like, I wouldn't go back to corporate America. Like,
Yeah.
you couldn't pay me enough to do that. There's
Wow.
no way. It created a really solid foundation and a really good foundation for what I do now. But if given the choice, I would not go back to doing that.
Wow. Wow. So even if you got paid, you can name the price, you would not go back.
No, there's just something about not having the freedom that I have now,
Mm, mhm.
that makes me feel very anxious, right? Because I love the fact that I can just get up in the middle of the day and go to the gym, or I can, on a Tuesday go and fly out somewhere and be there for a week or two or a month if I decide to, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
have anything holding here. And to go back to corporate America to do that, no, like I'm not about the golden handcuffs. No, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Not at
So
all. Not at all.
for the listeners, the they're probably thinking like, what's golden handcuffs? You know, we're in this world, we're aware of it. We both escaped our W-2, if you will. Golden handcuffs are handcuffs that look really pretty, but they're still handcuffs.
Right.
And
Right.
that's your job, your current W-2. Like Ella Ray said, she can go anywhere. Ella Ray didn't, I think last year when we met, weren't you like in Arizona for some time? Would you talk about that experience?
It's funny because it seems that every time that I go to Arizona, I end up staying longer and longer and longer. I remember the first time I went, I was on the plane and I just remember seeing like just all the desert and I was like, what is this? And then I get out of the plane and all of the buildings are like sand color and very small windows. And I was like, this is so nasty. Why would anybody come here? And then the second time was for the Owners Club retreat in Scottsdale, and it was like terracotta roofs and it was like white plaster building. I was like, oh, this is pretty.
It's
And
real
the
nice.
third time I went, and I think that was I was there after that for our meeting for the day with Pace. I think I was there for like maybe 2 weeks or so. And the last time I was there was from September to October, so I stood there for a month
Oh,
last year. And I
nice.
stayed in like three different Airbnbs and I was just loving it because it was like I was laying by the pool every day and they're well, at that point they were like 3 hours behind or 2 hours behind, I forget. So the
Oh,
workday here on the East Coast is already done. So I still had, a good amount of time to just go and chill and hang out by the pool or go and see people. So yeah, I tend to do that. I did that in Montana too. I stood there for about a good month. So
oh, nice, nice. So this transaction coordination, it sounds like it's giving you a lot of time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom. Would you talk about how you were able to get to that? Because I'm thinking about my listeners here, those eavesdropping. They're probably thinking, so you just sit around on your chair answering emails and calling people, and you get to do that anywhere you want, and you make that much money doing that? Talk about how you've gotten this freedom.
yeah. I think well, it certainly wasn't like this in the beginning. I could tell you that,
Yeah.
right? Like there was no way. I wasn't getting enough files and the files that I did have, I was like nervous about. It took some time to get to this point, but I will say that yes, it's a lot of sitting at my desk, getting on the phone, answering emails. But what I find is that it's also a lot of mental gymnastics throughout the day.
Mm.
So, like, come Friday night, it's like, don't talk to me anymore. I'm done. Like, I don't want to deal with
Yeah.
anybody. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to think anymore because it does consume. So, mental work consumes a lot of energy, right? People think
Yeah.
that physical work is more grueling than mental work, and I think to some extent, mental work is really it's exhausting. And when you have so many deals going on, because I'll work 15, 20, one time I was working 40 deals at a time. And for me, it was just like unbelievable. Like you have to remember who's who, who's doing what, and every
Oh,
file is different and you don't want to mistake one realtor with the other deal.
yeah.
So it's just a lot going on. But I think if you're really good at multitasking and also just keeping track of these things, you're going to be pretty well set for doing some work like this. And I think that's why I've always said like anyone who has an administrative assistant background or like an executive assistant background would do really well with transaction coordination because if I don't think that if I had that foundation, I
Mhm.
wouldn't be doing as well as I was able to, just because I was managing six CEOs, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
I had so much going on with so many different, like they were buying companies like Swanson, 24 Hour Fitness, Siemens Industries. Like they were buying these companies, so not only was I dealing with them, I was also dealing with the people in the companies that they bought, and it was just a lot going on.
Wow.
But I think that really set me up for success when it came to this.
Wow. So could we dig into that some? So would you talk about your what Cody Sanchez, Pace Morby, others call like zone of genius, your superpower, and connect that to how, because you kind of put some light on it, connect it to how your previous W-2 that were golden handcuffs, how did it just lay
Right.
that groundwork for you to have a golden life without the handcuffs?
Without the handcuffs. Um, let's see. So, how did my zone of genius? So, what part exactly would you like me to touch on? Like, where is my zone of genius, or how that fits into what I'm doing,
Yeah,
or
talk about where
combination?
your zone of genius is, and then
Okay,
we'll flow to how that connects to what you're doing right now.
sure. So, I think my zone of genius is that I'm able to see the bigger picture where people are just focusing on bits and pieces of the issue. And sometimes they don't realize that there are other factors coming into play that are going to cause a problem later on. But I'm able to see everything from a bird's eye perspective. So I can already see where the problems are going to be and I can
Okay,
address those before they become an issue, right? That's my zone of genius.
nice.
So, and I see things that because I'm so used to paying attention to detail that I see things that don't others don't realize right off the bat, and that really helps immensely in these deals. I think one good instance and one good example of this was I was talking to someone this weekend about a deal that they have, and we're going over the numbers, and they put this whole packet together, really well presented. I was like, wow, like we need more wholesalers like this. But as I'm looking through the documents, I'm like, well, why is the PITI so high? And then we're looking back and forth on these mortgage statements, and they're like, oh no. I said, are they caught up to date? And they're like, oh yeah, they have their most recent mortgage statement in there. And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm like, why does this say June? We're not even in May yet. And then come to find out, it was like May of 20 or June of 2025 for the statement. So it was like a
Oh,
really old statement, but nobody had picked up on it. So then it was also
oh,
like, well, why are the taxes and why is the escrow so low? And it was a $1,600 PITI. And, I saw one for 2,400, one for 1,600. And I'm like, what is going on here?
something's
Turns
up.
out that they had veterans get 100% disability and they don't have to pay property taxes. But
Oh,
once you sell that property, that exemption comes off.
yeah.
So it went back to like $2,400, $2,500 a month, which if
Oh,
somebody's buying a deal and they're thinking it's going to be such a great deal because it's like $1,600 a month and then you close on it and now all of a sudden your taxes go up. Think about it, like that the taxes on that property were like $7,000 a year. And so
oh,
wait, like another $600 a month, I think it was. Something like that. Either which way, I was looking at it and I was talking to the wholesaler about these things and they were like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that," or, "Oh, I didn't know about that." So, I'm able to take a broader look at things and really see things that people aren't noticing, which I think really puts me in a good position because a lot of times wholesalers or even buyers are not, they haven't seen as many deals. Think about it. How many deals have you bought?
I have bought probably eight, buying some more, probably buying three more this month.
Okay, so let's say 11. But I've done hundreds, right? So there's going to be things that you're not aware of that you have no idea will be a problem later on where I've been down the street already, right? Like I know
Yeah.
what that means. I know when I see this document, I know what that means. And I think that's what puts me in that zone of genius and that's what makes me a good transaction coordinator.
I think
So,
that's
that's
that's awesome. So that foresight. So is that I feel like that's like heavy. integrator, but would that be some visionary stuff also?
Um, I struggle with that. I really do because I'm not good at creating visions for myself, right? But if someone comes to me with a vision that they have about what they want to do, I know how to put that together and how to facilitate it for them. But
Okay.
coming up with my own visions has been a real struggle. So I don't know that I'm necessarily a visionary, but maybe I've got like some aspects of it. I'm not sure. That's something I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah. But definite. So talk something about. I mean, you've kind of already have. So your zone of genius, being able to look down the line and pick up on different details, see the bigger picture, and with you doing thousands, hundreds of files, that's really helped you to kind of see all the possible things that could go wrong. And I'm sure that there are more things that you've not even encountered. um,
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's why I continue to do this
mm,
because every deal is so different and every deal has its own sets of rules, right? Like right now, I have a deal. It's a deal in Kentucky. I feel so bad for the guy. He is facing foreclosure and he bought this property. He was single when he bought this property, and now he's married. And he's married to someone who's not documented. And Kentucky law says that if you become married after you buy a property, even if you were single when you bought it, they or the spouse, the new spouse now, has to sign off on the sale docs.
yeah, same like
And
Oklahoma.
she does not want to sign off on the docs because she's so paranoid that if she signs off on the docs, she's going to get deported. And I'm like, well, you got married. Your name is on public record already. Like, this is not, you're signing a quitclaim deed where you have no interest in this property whatsoever. And she still won't sign it. And the poor guy has until the 30th to get her to sign it. And I don't think she
2 days.
realizes that if she doesn't sign these documents, she's putting her husband in a bad position. And they're both going to be in a bad position because they're married now. So it's just, and I didn't know that. Kentucky has, they call them dower rights or dowager rights. Every state works differently, right? And this is just something that, I learned. And um, it's just
Wow.
fascinating to me. Like it gets me into curative title stuff. It gets me into, dirty deeds stuff, kind of like, when you have deeds with breaking chain of title or probates or, finding relatives and heirs and all of that stuff. So I just kind of like this stuff. I don't know. I have a I have a
Yeah.
fascination with it. So I guess that makes it something that I enjoy doing, and that's probably why I continue to do it for a while now.
Yeah, I can see how it's fun, and I think that's why I also like door knocking and seller appointments and being there because I have the whole
Yes.
gambit. I mean, I got a contract last month and I was negotiating with the mom and then the two sons. One of the sons was autistic and the other son, I guess, is in mental depression and
Oh
he
man.
doesn't really do anything and both of them are in their 30s and this I mean it was quite insane actually. I was pushing the conversation along and they're yellow personalities, so they're just talking, 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 talking. And literally, LRA, we're having a conversation. We're outside in the backyard, and there's a squirrel that runs across the fence, and one of the sons who's on the spectrum literally says squirrel, and, and the whole conversation goes off for probably 5 minutes. Like literally, I am
Oh my
dealing
god.
with just crazy situations, but it makes it fun. And so I like was, shared that with my wife and she's just like, and so here's the other funny thing. The one son didn't even have a shirt on and he's kind of like obese. So he's just like, I'm having a conversation with a half naked guy, a mom, and a kid that's, or I mean,
My
not a kid, but a
goodness.
guy that's in depression. So It definitely is a it could be a circus. I think that's a good word.
Right, and there's no shortage of stories to be had. I love that. See, I don't do so well with, I mean, maybe I do, I don't know. I talk to sellers all the time, right? But I talk to them after they've already been put under contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I'm still getting a lot of like, how does this work? I don't really understand, like, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I end up having a relationship with them. But to do door knocking, I actually did that here in Florida when Alexis was still here. And
No.
to me, it was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I don't know how to talk to people like this. Like, this is so strange and awkward for me.
Yeah,
So I mean, but the stories are fascinating.
door knocking is its own beast, and I think I did it because I was so hungry and I wanted to leave my W-2, wanted to provide more for my family, wanted to get into real estate, and so that just kept me going. It's just the hunger.
Right.
Now I think I'm at a place where I want to just go to appointments and have somebody else do the door knocking. I just had to figure out what
Right.
that looks like. You know,
Right. Right. You need a door knocking team now.
yeah,
But I
basically.
think part of it is, is the personality too. Like you really have to be compassionate and you have to understand their position and where they're coming from because a lot of times they don't even want to talk to anybody because they've just been
Yeah,
hounded so much by like bill collectors and the mortgage company and the courts and it's a really tough place to be in.
yeah,
So you as a door knocker have to have, or any door knocker has to have, that sense of compassion and that sense of humanity that it's not just like, okay, just go knock on doors and let's see if they want to sell their house, right? Because
yeah,
there's so many layers that you have to peel back in order to really get them to that point.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you've got real skills.
Thank you, thank you. Ella Ray, we're gonna land the plane here. So you've talked some about TC and you've captured the attention of those listening who might be an executive or assistant of sorts, admin,
Yeah.
executive, whatever it might be. Would you talk a little bit about what it if you're in their shoes, they're saying, okay, I would love to use these skills that I already have in a different field like real estate that actually gives me location freedom, time freedom, and financial freedom, and they're interested, what would you say to them with becoming a TC? What's the first thing you'd say to help them get towards that desire they have, reach that goal?
I get asked this question so often, and for me, it can be a little difficult to answer, right? Because I think that when I got in this space, I didn't intend to be in this space.
Oh,
And it was
okay.
only because I had joined Sub 2 and I was trying to wholesale and I realized that I sucked at it. Like I was just telling you, like I
Gotcha.
was not good at, talking to sellers.
Gotcha.
But I had gained this understanding of creative finance. I would say it's difficult. I would say it's difficult for someone to come in just because they have that background and think that they can be a transaction coordinator in this space, in the creative finance space, because
Gotcha.
there was so much that I had to learn before I could actually facilitate it and put it on paper, right? Because theoretical application, which is what we learn in Sub 2, is a lot different than the practical application.
Yeah.
So I had to have an understanding of that before I could actually become a TC. So for me, my go-to answer is always like, if you want to become a creative TC, you should join Sub 2, right? Like you should join a community where you learn about creative finance in order to
I
do this.
see.
Yes, you could be a regular TC, but a regular TC is making three, four, maybe $500 on a file, whereas a creative TC is making anywhere from like 1,500, 2,400, sometimes even 3,000, depending on the deal type.
Wow.
So, but there's a lot, like you have to have a good amount of knowledge about how to work those deals in order to be effective at them, right? Um, so that for me, that's why it's always like kind of difficult for me to answer that question because my go-to is like, well, learn about creative finance so that you can become a creative finance TC.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, like if you wanted to just be a a TC, a traditional TC, which I wouldn't do. I just think, I feel like there's a lot more work there to be it, which is ironic. There's a lot more work on the traditional side than there is on the creative side.
Really?
But most of it is just like pushing paper, right? And dealing with the lenders. And most of the time, we're not dealing with lenders. But most of
Yeah.
the time, what we're doing is we're making sure that title's good. We're correcting anything on the title that's not good. A lot of interfacing with the seller, getting mortgage portal information, building that trust, right?
Yeah.
In a conventional, you don't have to do that. So for me, my answer is always going to be, well, learn about creative finance first, and then get in with a group of people who are doing TC work, or reach out to TCs and see if you can kind of what do they call those? Like do like a kind of internship kind of thing to learn how to write, to learn how to facilitate a file.
Nice, nice. Well,
But yeah,
thanks for being on this episode. I want to have another episode with you, and I want to talk
yes,
and probably dig into a deal. You don't have to give specifics, but just like highlight the things you notice and kind of go through it because I'm thinking about someone who they don't know. Like you said, there's theory and then there's practice.
right,
And I've found one of the sales books I love to read and subscribe to is Sandler Submarine and the Sandler Method. But he has a book called "You Can't Teach a Kid How to Ride a Bike at a Seminar."
a seminar, yeah,
And it's like, yeah, you are so right because you could know the mechanics and you use your foot this way to go forward and
right,
brake and you lean that, but it's when you get on it and you start to actually go, those pieces come together and the puzzle makes sense. And so I want to look at it, I want
right,
to talk about some of that in another episode. Thanks for being here. Guys, what are you
yeah.
doing this week to build a life worth living brick by brick? Keep pushing forward. If you have golden handcuffs, realize there are keys, many different keys that could set you free. We'll catch you on the next episode.
100%. Thank you.